The morning sun shone bright over Lincoln Elementary School in the small town of Greenfield, Colorado. Children ran around the playground, their laughter filling the air as they played tag and climbed on the jungle gym. It was a normal Tuesday morning, just like any other day at the school. Principal Helen Carter sat in her office, drinking her coffee and looking through the daily reports. She had been running this school for 15 years and loved every moment of it. The children here were special to her, and she treated each one like they were her own kids. In classroom 4B, teacher Lisa Murphy was helping her students with their math homework. 23 fourth graders sat at their desks, working on addition and subtraction problems. Lisa walked between the rows, stopping to help students who were having trouble. She had been teaching for 8 years and knew how to make learning fun. Down the hall, janitor Frank Rodriguez was cleaning the floors with his mop and bucket. Frank was a quiet man who had served in the Marines for 12 years before coming to work at the school. He knew every corner of the building and took pride in keeping it clean and safe for the children. At the back of the school, Coach Steve Bennett was setting up equipment for the morning gym class. He had been a physical education teacher for 10 years and loved watching the kids play sports and stay active. His gym was his kingdom, and he made sure every child felt welcome there. The sky above the school was clear and blue, with only a few white clouds floating by. Nobody noticed the strange shimmer that appeared high above the town. It started small, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but it grew bigger and bigger. 3 dark shapes began to form in the sky. They were not airplanes or helicopters. They were something else entirely. The objects were long and sleek, with a dark metal surface that seemed to absorb light. They moved without making any sound, floating down from the clouds like giant shadows. On the playground, some children stopped playing and looked up at the sky. They pointed at the strange objects and asked their teachers what they were. The teachers squinted against the sun, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Inside the lead ship, Commander Zexthal looked down at the human settlement below. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. His race, the Korthani, had been conquering worlds for over 1,000 years. They had a simple strategy that worked every time: find the young ones and use them to make the adults surrender. The Korthani had studied human behavior for months. They knew that humans cared deeply about their children, more than most species in the galaxy. This school was the perfect target. It held over 300 young humans, and their parents would do anything to keep them safe. Zexthal gave the order to his troops: begin the attack. Target the playground first. We want the adults to see what happens when they resist us. The first energy blast came without warning. It struck the swing set on the playground, melting the metal chains and seats into a puddle of hot liquid. The children screamed and ran toward the school building. Teachers rushed outside to help them get to safety. A second blast hit the monkey bars, turning them into twisted metal. The smell of burning plastic and metal filled the air. More blasts followed, each one designed to scare the humans and show them the power of the Korthani weapons. Principal Carter heard the explosions and immediately pressed the emergency button on her desk. Red lights flashed throughout the school, and a recorded voice came over the speakers. This is not a drill. All students and staff moved to secure positions immediately. The lockdown system activated automatically. Heavy metal doors slammed shut, sealing off sections of the school. Windows were covered by steel shutters that dropped down from the ceiling. The building transformed from a place of learning into a fortress. Lisa Murphy quickly moved her students away from the windows. "Everyone stay calm," she said in a steady voice. "Remember what we practiced during our safety drills. We are going to play the quiet game now." The children huddled together behind their desks, which Lisa had quickly pushed together to form a barrier. She had done this drill many times, but this time felt different. The explosions outside were real, and the danger was real too. Frank Rodriguez dropped his mop and bucket when he heard the first blast. He ran to the basement, where he opened a hidden panel behind the boiler. Inside was a collection of weapons and supplies that most people did not know existed. Every school in America had one now, ever since the alien raids had started 3 years ago. Frank grabbed a rifle and checked to make sure it was loaded. He had hoped he would never need to use these weapons, but he was ready. He had sworn an oath to protect this school and these children, and he meant to keep that promise. The Corthony ships landed in the parking lot, their landing gear crushing several cars. The ships were huge, each one the size of a city bus. Doors opened on the sides, and alien soldiers began to pour out. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that glowed with blue energy dot. The aliens were confident as they approached the school. They had done this 17 times before on other worlds, and it always worked the same way. The adults would see their children in danger and surrender immediately. Then the planet would belong to the Corthony Empire. But as the alien soldiers reached the front door of the school, they found something they did not expect. The door was made of thick steel, and it was locked tight. The windows were covered with metal shutters. The building looked more like a military base than a school. Commander Zexthal was not worried. His soldiers had plasma cutters that could melt through any metal. "Cut through the door," he ordered. "We will take the children and end this quickly." The aliens began cutting through the front door, their weapons sending sparks flying. The metal glowed red-hot as it began to melt. Soon they would be inside, and the humans would have no choice but to surrender. Inside the school, Frank Rodriguez watched the aliens on the security cameras. He spoke into his radio, contacting other staff members throughout the building. "They are coming through the front door. Everyone get ready." The school had become very quiet. The only sounds were the footsteps of teachers and staff moving through the halls, taking their positions. The children were safe in their classrooms, protected by adults who would do anything to keep them from harm. As the aliens finished cutting through the door, they had no idea what they were walking into. They thought they were about to capture a building full of helpless humans. Instead, they were about to learn why attacking a human school was the worst mistake they could ever make. The first alien soldier stepped through the melted doorway, his weapon ready. Behind him came 20 more soldiers, all of them eager to complete their mission. They spread out through the entrance hall, looking for signs of the humans they had come to capture. What they found instead was an empty hallway and the sound of their own footsteps echoing off the walls. The school seemed deserted, but their heat sensors told them that hundreds of humans were still inside the building, waiting in the darkness. The hunt was about to begin, but the aliens did not know that they were no longer the hunters. They had become the prey. The alien soldiers moved slowly through the empty hallway, their weapons glowing blue in the dim light. They expected to find scared humans running around, but instead found only silence. The school felt like a ghost town, but their heat sensors showed that people were still inside. Coach Steve Bennett crouched behind a stack of gym mats in the storage room. He had been teaching 5th graders about teamwork when the attack started. Now he was about to show them what real teamwork looked like. He spoke quietly into his radio to the other teachers spread throughout the building. "This is Steve. I have eyes on 5 aliens moving toward the gym. Karen, are you ready in the art room?" Art teacher Karen White pressed her radio button. "Ready, Steve. I have some surprises waiting for them." Karen had been a chemistry major in college before becoming a teacher. She knew how to mix cleaning supplies in ways that could be very dangerous. The aliens reached the first intersection in the hallway. They had to choose which way to go. Half of them turned left toward the gym, while the other half went right toward the art room. They had no idea that both paths led to carefully planned traps. The group heading to the gym walked past several classrooms. In each one, teachers and older students watched them through small cracks in the doors. Nobody moved or made a sound. They waited for the right moment to act. Math teacher Dan Foster was hidden in classroom 3A with 6 8th grade students. He had been calculating angles and distances since the aliens arrived. Dan had served in the army before becoming a teacher, and he knew how to plan an attack. He whispered to his students, "Remember, we throw on my signal. Aim for the spots." I marked on the floor. The students held homemade weapons made from scissors, rulers, and other school supplies. They had turned ordinary classroom items into dangerous projectiles. Dan had taught them the math behind throwing objects accurately. And now they were about to put that lesson to use. In the art room, Karen White finished mixing her special chemicals. She had made several bottles of liquid that would explode when they hit the ground. She also had containers of powder that would create thick smoke when mixed with air. The art room had become a chemical weapons factory. The aliens reached the gym and used their plasma cutters to melt through the door. The metal glowed red-hot and dripped to the floor. When the door finally gave way, they stepped into the large gymnasium, their weapons ready. What they found was an empty basketball court with equipment scattered around. But Steve Bennett was not hiding. He stood in the center of the court, holding a baseball bat. He looked calm and ready for a fight. "You picked the wrong school," Steve said loudly. His voice echoed through the gym. The aliens raised their weapons, but before they could fire, the attack began. From the upper level of the gym, 8th grade students began throwing heavy objects down at the aliens. Basketballs, baseball bats, and metal weights rained down from above. That the aliens fired their weapons at the ceiling, but the students were well hidden behind protective barriers. The plasma blasts hit the walls and left burn marks, but did not hurt any of the humans. Steve Bennett charged forward with his baseball bat. He had played college baseball 20 years ago and still had a good swing. He hit the first alien in the chest, sending it flying backward. The alien's armor cracked from the impact. More students joined the fight, sliding down ropes from the upper level. They had been practicing this move in gym class for months, never knowing they would use it in a real battle. They landed behind the aliens and attacked from all sides. Meanwhile, the other group of aliens had reached the art room. They melted through the door and stepped inside, expecting to find scared teachers and students. Instead, they found Karen White standing behind her desk, wearing safety goggles and rubber gloves. "Welcome to art class," Karen said with a smile. "Today we're going to learn about chemical reactions." She threw the first bottle at the lead alien. It exploded on impact, covering the alien in a burning liquid that ate through its armor. The alien screamed and fell to the floor, its weapon clattering away. Karen threw more bottles, each one containing a different chemical mixture. Some exploded with bright flashes of light that blinded the aliens. Others created thick clouds of smoke that made it impossible to see. The art room became a battlefield filled with smoke and fire. The aliens tried to retreat, but Karen had planned for that too. She had spread a special powder on the floor near the door. When the aliens stepped on it, their feet stuck to the ground like glue. They were trapped in the room with no way to escape. From the hallway, more teachers joined the fight. Librarian Betty Adams arrived with a cart full of heavy books. She had served 2 tours in Afghanistan before becoming a school librarian. She knew how to fight in close combat. Betty threw books at the aliens with deadly accuracy. Each book hit its target perfectly, striking the aliens in their weak spots. A dictionary hit one alien in the head, knocking it unconscious. A thick math textbook broke another alien's weapon. The aliens had expected to find weak humans who would. surrender quickly. Instead, they found teachers and students who fought like trained soldiers. Every classroom had become a fortress, and every teacher had become a warrior. Science teacher Paul Michel used his knowledge of physics to create traps throughout the hallway. He had stretched rubber bands between the walls at ankle height, causing aliens to trip and fall. He had also balanced heavy objects on door frames that would fall when the doors opened. The aliens began to realize that they were in serious trouble. Their weapons were powerful, but the humans knew the building better than they did. Every turn led to another trap, and every room held more dangers. Music teacher Janet Stone had barricaded herself in the music room with 20 students. She had arranged the chairs and music stands to create a maze that would confuse the aliens. When the aliens finally broke through the door, they found themselves lost in a puzzle made of musical instruments. The students threw drumsticks and flutes at the aliens, while Janet played loud, screeching music on her electric guitar. The sound was so terrible that the aliens covered their ears and could not concentrate on fighting. Back in the gym, Steve Bennett and his students had defeated all 5 aliens. The creatures lay on the floor, their armor broken and their weapons destroyed. The humans had won their first victory, but they knew more aliens were coming. Steve picked up one of the alien weapons and studied it carefully. He had always been good with technology, and he figured out how to use the strange device. "Kids," he said to his students, "we just got some new equipment." Throughout the school, similar battles were taking place. The aliens had expected an easy victory, but they were losing soldiers in every room. The humans fought with creativity and determination that the aliens had never seen before. Custodian Frank Rodriguez moved through the ventilation system above the ceiling. He had memorized every air duct and pipe in the building. He could move from room to room without being seen, striking at the aliens from above. Frank dropped down into a hallway where 3 aliens were trying to break into a classroom. He landed silently behind them and attacked with a wrench from his tool belt. The aliens never knew what hit them. The battle was just beginning, but already the aliens were learning a hard lesson. Human schools were not soft targets filled with helpless victims. They were fortresses defended by people who would fight to the death to protect their children. Commander Zexthal watched the battle from his ship and could not believe what he was seeing. His soldiers were being defeated by teachers and students. This had never happened before in the history of the Korthani Empire. He sent more soldiers into the school, but they met the same fate as the first group. The humans had turned their place of learning into a place of war, and they were winning. An emergency signal went out from Lincoln Elementary School at exactly 10:47 in the morning. The message was simple but urgent. Code red at Lincoln Elementary. Children in danger. All available units respond immediately. The signal reached every police station, fire department, and military base within 100 miles. It also reached something else that the aliens did not understand about humans. Their community's police chief, Robert Taylor, was sitting at his desk when the alarm went off. He had 3 children who attended Lincoln Elementary, and his wife. Susan taught 2nd grade there. He grabbed his radio and shouted, "All units, code red at Lincoln Elementary. This is not a drill. Every officer responds now." Within minutes, police cars from 3 counties were racing toward the school. Their sirens screamed through the morning air as they sped down highways and back roads. Every officer knew that children were in danger, and nothing else mattered. At the fire station, Captain Mike Johnson was checking equipment when he heard the alarm. His daughter Emma was in 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary. He rang the bell and called out, "Everyone move! Lincoln Elementary is under attack." Fire trucks, ambulances, and rescue vehicles poured out of stations across the region. The firefighters were not just going to put out fires. They were going to fight for their children. 50 miles away, Air Force Captain Julie Morgan was leading a training exercise when she received the emergency signal. She did not ask for permission or wait for orders. She turned her fighter jet toward the school and told her squadron to follow her. "This is Captain Morgan," she announced over the radio. "We are going to help some kids. Follow me and stay ready for anything." The sound of jet engines filled the sky as military aircraft changed course and headed for the small town of Greenfield. The aliens had attacked the wrong species at the wrong time, but the most powerful response came from ordinary people who lived in the town. Parents who had children at the school dropped everything and ran to their cars. Shop owners closed their stores and grabbed whatever weapons they could find. Farmers left their fields and drove their trucks toward the school. Bill Hayes was fixing a fence on his ranch when he heard the emergency signal on his radio. His grandson Tommy was in first grade at Lincoln Elementary. Bill ran to his house and grabbed his hunting rifle from the gun cabinet. "Martha," he called to his wife, "get the boys. We are going to the school." Within minutes, Bill was driving his pickup truck toward town. In the back were his son Pete and his brother-in-law Gary, both carrying rifles. They had been hunting together since they were kids, and they knew how to shoot. All across the region, similar scenes were playing out. People were getting weapons and heading for the school. They came in cars, trucks, motorcycles, and on foot. They brought hunting rifles, shotguns, and pistols. Some brought baseball bats and golf clubs. Others brought tools from their workshops. The aliens had studied human behavior, but they had missed something important. Humans did not just protect their own children. They protected all children in their community. An attack on one school was an attack on everyone. Construction worker Joe Martinez was building a house when he heard the news on his radio. He threw down his hammer and ran to his truck. He called his crew on the radio and told them to meet him at the school. They brought their tools, power drills, nail guns, and heavy machinery that could be used as weapons. Teacher Mary Nelson was at home with the flu when she heard about the attack. She taught at a school in the next town, but she knew teachers at Lincoln Elementary. She got dressed and drove to the school, bringing a box of supplies she kept for emergencies. Retired Marine Colonel Jack Thompson was gardening when his neighbor called him about the attack. Jack had served in 3 wars and knew how to fight. He went to his basement and opened a gun safe that held weapons from his military days. "Those aliens picked the wrong fight," Jack said to himself as he loaded his rifle. The response was growing bigger by the minute. People were coming from farther and farther away as the news spread. It was not just about Lincoln Elementary anymore. It was about protecting human children everywhere. At the school, the battle was still raging. The aliens had sent more soldiers inside, but they were losing ground. The teachers and students fought with determination that surprised everyone, including themselves. Principal Helen Carter had set up a command center in her office. She was talking to the approaching rescue teams on the radio, telling them where to position themselves around the school. She had become a general in a war she never expected to fight. "The aliens have 3 ships in the parking lot," she told the incoming forces. "They are sending more soldiers into the building every few minutes. We need to stop them before they overwhelm us." The first police cars arrived at the school and immediately came under fire from the alien ships. The plasma blasts melted front ends of 2 patrol cars, but the officers jumped out and took cover behind nearby buildings. Police Chief Taylor set up a command post behind the school bus depot. He could see the alien ships clearly from there, and he began coordinating the response. "We need to surround the building," he told his officers. "Do not let any more aliens get inside." The firefighters arrived next, bringing their heavy equipment. They parked their trucks in a circle around the school and began spraying water at the alien ships. The water turned to steam when it hit the hot metal, creating a thick cloud that made it hard for the aliens to see. More and more people arrived every minute. They came from every direction, surrounding the school like a human army. The aliens realized they were no longer fighting just the people inside the school. They were fighting an entire community. Hayes and his family took position behind the school cafeteria. They had a clear view of one of the alien ships and began shooting at it with their hunting rifles. The bullets did not damage the ship much, but they got the aliens' attention. The alien ships began firing at the humans outside the school, but there were too many targets. Every time they shot at one group, another group would attack from a different direction. The humans were everywhere, and they kept coming. Captain Julie Morgan's fighter jets appeared in the sky above the school. She could see the alien ships clearly and prepared to attack. But she had to be careful. There were children inside the school, and she did not want to hurt them. "This is Captain Morgan," she announced over the radio. "I am going to target the alien ships. Everyone stay away from the parking lot." The jets screamed down from the sky, their weapons blazing. Missiles streaked toward the alien ships, exploding in balls of fire and smoke. The aliens' shields protected them from the worst damage, but their ships were hurt. Commander Zexthil watched in horror as his perfect plan fell apart. The humans were not surrendering. Instead, they were fighting, back with a fury he had never seen before. Hundreds of them were arriving every minute, and they all seemed ready to die to protect their children. "Sir," one of his officers said, "we are losing soldiers faster than we can send them in. The humans have turned the school into a fortress." Zexthil looked at the scene outside his ship. Humans were everywhere, shooting at his ships and trying to break through his defenses. More were arriving every minute, and they brought bigger and better weapons. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Our intelligence said humans would surrender when we threatened their young." His officer shook his head. The intelligence was wrong. "Sir, these humans do not surrender. They fight." The battle was entering a new phase. The aliens were no longer attacking. They were trying to defend themselves. But they were outnumbered and outgunned by an enemy that would not give up. Inside the school, the teachers and students could hear the sounds of battle outside. They knew help was coming, but they were not going to wait for rescue. They were going to keep fighting until every alien was defeated. The humans had awakened something that the aliens did not understand. It was not just anger or fear. It was the protective instinct of an entire species. And once awakened, it could not be stopped. The battle reached a turning point when the humans stopped fighting to defend and started fighting to attack. What the aliens saw next would haunt their species for generations, if any of them lived to tell the story. Inside the school, something had changed in the humans. The teachers and staff were no longer just protecting the children. They had become hunters, stalking the alien soldiers through the hallways like predators hunting prey. Custodian Frank Rodriguez had become the deadliest person in the building. He moved through the air vents like a ghost, appearing behind alien soldiers and taking them down with silent efficiency. His military training had kicked in, and he was using every skill he had learned in the Marines. Frank dropped down into a hallway where 4 aliens were trying to break into a classroom. He landed without making a sound and attacked with a screwdriver from his tool belt. The first alien went down before it even knew he was there. The second alien turned around just in time to see Frank's wrench coming toward its head. The other 2 aliens tried to run, but Frank was faster. He had grown up in the rough neighborhoods of Detroit and knew how to fight dirty. He used every trick he had learned on the streets and in the military. Within seconds, all 4 aliens were on the ground, their weapons scattered across the floor. In the gymnasium, Coach Steve Bennett had organized the older students into a fighting force. They moved through the building in groups, clearing out aliens room by room. The students were between 12 and 14 years old, but they fought like seasoned warriors. "Remember what I taught you about teamwork," Steve told his students, as they prepared to enter the cafeteria. "We go in together, we fight together, and we win together." The students nodded and gripped their improvised weapons. They had turned sports equipment into deadly tools. Baseball bats became clubs, hockey sticks became spears, and basketballs, filled with rocks, became grenades. They burst through the cafeteria doors and attacked the aliens inside. The creatures had been trying to set up a communication station, but they were overwhelmed by the human assault. The students fought with the intensity that shocked even themselves. Art teacher Karen White had turned her classroom into a chemical weapons factory. She had mixed every cleaning supply in the school to create bombs, poison gases, and acid that could eat through alien armor. She wore safety goggles and rubber gloves as she prepared her next batch of weapons. "Science was never my best subject," Karen said to herself as she mixed two dangerous chemicals together. "But I am getting better at it." She had already killed 6 aliens with her homemade weapons. Each one had been a different experiment, and she was learning what worked best. The aliens' armor was tough, but it could not protect them from the right chemical mixture. Outside the school, the human response had grown into something that terrified the aliens. Thousands of people had arrived from all over the region, and they were all armed and ready to fight. The parking lot had become a war zone, with humans attacking the alien ships from every direction. Rancher Bill Hayes had been joined by his entire family, 3 generations of fighters who knew how to use guns. His grandfather had fought in World War II, his father had served in Vietnam, and Bill himself had done 2 tours in Iraq. They positioned themselves behind the school buses and began a systematic attack on the nearest alien ship. "Grandpa always said the best defense is a good offense," Bill told his son Pete as they reloaded their rifles. Time to show these aliens what that means. The Hayes family was not alone. Similar groups of armed civilians had taken positions all around the school. They were farmers, construction workers, shop owners, and retired soldiers. They had one thing in common. They were all ready to die to protect the children inside the school. Police Chief Taylor had organized the law enforcement response into a coordinated assault. Officers from dozens of departments worked together, sharing ammunition and equipment. They had heavy weapons that could damage the alien ships, and they knew how to use them. "This is not about jurisdiction or politics," Taylor told his officers over the radio. "This is about saving kids. Every shot counts, so make them good ones." The police attack was relentless. They fired everything they had at the alien ships. Pistols, shotguns, rifles, and even a few rocket launchers that had been borrowed from the National Guard. The alien shields were getting weaker with each hit. Captain Julie Morgan's fighter jets had been joined by more military aircraft. Helicopters, bombers, and attack planes filled the sky above the school. They circled like vultures, waiting for the chance to strike without harming the children inside. The alien ships tried to retreat, but the humans had surrounded them completely. Every time they tried to lift off, rockets and missiles would force them back down. The aliens were trapped on the ground, surrounded by an army of angry humans. Commander Zextel realized that his forces were doomed. He had lost over half of his soldiers, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. They fought with a fury that he had never seen in any species. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving surrender offers from the humans." Zextel felt a moment of hope. Maybe the humans were finally ready to negotiate. "What are their terms?" The officer looked uncomfortable. "They want U.S. to release all our soldiers from the school and then leave the planet forever. And if we refuse, they say they will kill us all." Zexthol looked at the battle raging outside his ship. Humans were everywhere, and more were arriving every minute. He had studied 17 different species, and none of them had ever fought like this. "These humans are insane," he said. "They fight like they have nothing to lose." His tactical officer shook his head. "Sir, I think they are fighting because they have everything to lose. Those children in the school, they are not just random young ones. They are the future of the human species. That is why the adults will not surrender." Inside the school, the final assault was beginning. The teachers and students had cleared most of the building, but there were still aliens in the main hallway. Principal Helen Carter had decided it was time to end this. "Everyone listen up," she said over the school radio system. "We are going to finish this fight. Every alien in our school is going to be defeated. We are going to save our children and protect our community." The humans inside the school moved forward together. Teachers, students, and staff advanced down the hallway like a wave of destruction. They carried weapons made from school supplies, but they also carried something more powerful, the determination to protect their young. The aliens in the hallway saw them coming and tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. They were trapped between the advancing humans and the locked doors behind them. They raised their weapons and prepared to make their final stand. The battle was brief but intense. The humans attacked from all sides, using everything they had learned during the long fight. The aliens' superior weapons were no match for human determination and teamwork. When the smoke cleared, the hallway was littered with alien bodies. Humans had won, but the victory had cost them. 3 teachers had been killed in the fighting, and several students were injured. But the children were safe, and that was all that mattered. Outside, the battle was reaching its climax. The alien ships were badly damaged, and their shields were failing. The humans sensed that victory was close, and they pressed their attack with renewed fury. The sound of gunfire, explosions, and shouting filled the air. The small town of Greenfield had become a battlefield, and the humans were winning. The aliens, who had thought they could easily conquer Earth, were learning a harsh lesson about human nature. Commander Zextel made his final decision. He activated the self-destruct sequence on his ship and prepared to die. He would not surrender to these savage humans, and he would not let them capture Corthony technology. But the humans had anticipated this. They had been monitoring the alien communications, and they knew what was coming. They had one final surprise for the aliens, and it would ensure that no alien would ever attack a human school again. The explosion that Commander Zextel expected never came. As his finger moved toward the self-destruct button, every system on his ship suddenly went dead. The lights went out, the engines stopped, and even the life support systems shut down. In the basement of Lincoln Elementary School, computer teacher David Chun smiled as he typed commands into his laptop. David had been a cybersecurity expert for the government before becoming a teacher. When the aliens arrived, he had immediately started working on hacking their systems. "Got you," David said quietly as he took control of the alien ship's computer. "Your technology is advanced, but your security is terrible." David had been working on breaking into the alien systems since the attack began. He had found weaknesses in their communication networks and had slowly taken control of their ships. Now he could shut down their weapons, their engines, and even their life support. The other 2 alien ships also went dark as David's virus spread through their systems. The aliens inside were trapped, unable to move or fight back. Their advanced technology had become their weakness. Outside the school, the human fighters saw the alien ships go dark and knew the battle was over. They had won, but they were not celebrating yet. There were still aliens inside the school, and the children were still in danger. The final assault on the school began at exactly 2:15 in the afternoon. Hundreds of humans surrounded the building and moved in from every direction. Police officers, firefighters, soldiers, and civilians worked together to clear out the remaining aliens. Frank Rodriguez led a team of teachers and students through the main hallway. They moved carefully, checking every room and every hiding place. The aliens they found were weak and scared, their weapons running out of power. "Surrender now, and we will not hurt you," Frank told the aliens in each room. Some of them dropped their weapons and gave up. Others tried to fight and were quickly overwhelmed. The last group of aliens had barricaded themselves in the school office. They held 3 injured teachers as hostages and demanded safe passage off the planet. Principal Helen Carter walked up to the office door and spoke to them through the glass. "You have 2 choices," she said in a calm voice. "You can surrender now and live, or you can keep fighting and die. But either way, you are not leaving this school until every child is safe." The aliens looked at the hundreds of armed humans surrounding them and realized they had no choice. They dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. The hostages were freed, and the battle was finally over. The cleanup took several hours. The aliens who had surrendered were taken to a secure facility for questioning. The bodies of the dead aliens were collected and studied by military scientists. The damaged alien ships were loaded onto military trucks and taken away, but the most important work was making sure the children were safe. Every student was checked by doctors and nurses who had rushed to the school. Most of the children were scared but unhurt. They had been protected by their teachers and the quick lockdown procedures. The 3 teachers who had died in the battle were honored as heroes. Coach Steve Bennett had been killed while protecting students in the gymnasium. Librarian Betty Adams had died defending the library. Principal Helen Carter had been shot while negotiating with the last group of aliens. Their sacrifice had saved hundreds of children. The story of the Battle of Lincoln Elementary spread quickly around the tree world. News reporters came from every country to interview the survivors and learn what had happened. The images of ordinary teachers and students fighting off alien invaders shocked people everywhere, but the most important audience was not on Earth. Admiral Susan Blake of the Human Defense Force made sure that recordings of the battle were broadcast to every alien civilization in the galaxy. She wanted them all to see what happened when humans were threatened. The recordings showed aliens with superior technology being defeated by humans with simple weapons. They showed teachers fighting like soldiers and students working together like a military unit. Most importantly, they showed an entire human community coming together to protect their children. The message was clear: attack human children and face the fury of the entire species. The reaction from alien civilizations was immediate and dramatic. Within days, the Galactic Council received messages from dozens of species. They all said the same thing. They wanted nothing to do with any conflict involving humans. The Zephyrian Union, which had been humanity's biggest enemy, sent diplomats to Earth with a peace treaty. Their ambassador was a tall, blue-skinned creature with compound eyes that showed fear when he looked at the human negotiators. "We had no idea," the ambassador said during the peace talks. "Our intelligence reports said humans were weak and divided. We did not know you would fight so hard to protect your young." Human diplomat Rebecca Torres smiled as she signed the treaty. "Now you know. Spread the word to every species in the galaxy. Human children are off limits." The Corthany Empire simply disappeared. Their remaining ships left known space and were never seen again. Other alien species said the Corthany had retreated to the far edge of the galaxy, too scared to come anywhere near human territory. Scientists who studied the alien prisoners learned important information about galactic politics. Most alien species did care about their young, but not the way humans did. When their children were threatened, they would negotiate or retreat. They would not fight to the death like humans. "Humans are unique," explained Dr. Sarah Williams. the lead researcher studying the aliens. Other species value survival of the group over protection of individuals. Humans will sacrifice everything to save their children, even if it means the whole community might be destroyed. The battle also changed how human schools operated. Every school in the world was given better security systems and emergency protocols. Teachers received training in basic combat and first aid. Students practiced lockdown drills that were more like military exercises. But the most important change was in how humans saw themselves. They realized that their love for their children was not a weakness. It was their greatest strength. It made them capable of things that other species thought were impossible. Years later, alien military academies would study the Battle of Lincoln Elementary as an example of human tactics. They would analyze every move the teachers made and every decision the community leaders took. But they would never understand the most important factor, the love that drove humans to fight so hard. The school was rebuilt within 6 months, bigger and better than before. A memorial wall was installed in the main hallway with the names of the 3 teachers who had died. Students would stop there every day to remember the heroes who had protected them. Frank Rodriguez was promoted to head of security for all the schools in the district. He trained other custodians and maintenance workers in combat techniques. Every school needs a guardian, he would tell them. Someone who is ready to fight when danger comes. Lisa Murphy continued teaching 4th grade, but she also taught other teachers how to organize students during emergencies. Her calm leadership during the battle had saved many lives, and she became a model for teachers everywhere. David Shawn left teaching to work for the military, helping to develop defenses against alien technology. His computer skills had been crucial in defeating the alien ships, and the government wanted him to prepare for future attacks. The children who had survived the battle grew up with a special bond. They had been through something that no other humans had experienced. They became known as the Lincoln Generation, and many of them went on to join the military or work in space defense. 10 years after the battle, Earth had become the most respected and feared planet in the galaxy. No alien species would even consider attacking human settlements. The mere mention of human children would cause alien warriors to retreat. Ambassador Torres often told new alien diplomats the story of Lincoln Elementary. She would show them the recordings and explain what had happened. The aliens would watch in silence, their faces showing fear and respect. "This is what happens when you threaten our children," she would say. "Remember this story, and make sure your people remember it too." The Battle of Lincoln Elementary had lasted only 6 hours, but its effects would last forever. It had established humanity as a force that could not be defeated when their young were in danger. It had shown the galaxy that humans are not just another species to be conquered. Most importantly, it had proven that love could be the most powerful weapon in the universe. The love that teachers had for their students, that parents had for their children, and that communities had for their future. That love had defeated an alien empire and changed the course of galactic history. The small town of Greenfield, Colorado, had become famous throughout the galaxy. Tour groups from other planets would come to see the school where ordinary humans had accomplished the impossible. They would walk through the hallways and look at the memorial wall, trying to understand how such a small place had changed everything. But the people of Greenfield were not interested in fame. They had done what any human community would do when their children were threatened. They had fought with everything they had, and they had won. The lesson was simple and clear: never attack. A human school. The galaxy had learned this lesson well, and no alien would ever dare to test it again.